So this happened in 2017 at a McDonald's in San Diego. I was driving back from a friend's place after a pretty chill night. It was late, close to midnight, and I hadn't eaten since lunch. I spotted the Golden Arches and thought, perfect, quarter pounder, fries, and a Coke. It's all I need right now. The place was dead quiet when I walked in. Just two other people sitting far apart, one staring at their phone, the other picking at a half-eaten burger. The drive-thru had a couple of cars, but inside, it was just this weird late-night vibe where you can hear the soda machine bubbling and the fryer timers beeping in the back. I ordered my food, sat in one of the booths near the back, and started scrolling through my phone while I waited. My quarter pounder came out quick, and I was halfway through the burger when I realized I needed to hit the bathroom. The bathroom was right there in the corner of the restaurant, just past the counter. I pushed open the door and immediately noticed how small it was. Just one stall, one urinal, and a sink crammed into the space. The light above was flickering faintly, buzzing like it was on its last leg. The air felt cooler in there, almost damp, and there was this faint metallic smell. I stepped up to the urinal when something caught my eye. Pale feet, just standing there under the stall door. At first I thought, oh, someone's in there. But the longer I looked, the stranger it seemed. The feet were perfectly still. No shifting, no weight changes, nothing. They were bare, pale as hell, and weirdly clean, like unnaturally clean for someone barefoot in a McDonald's bathroom. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was some weird late night drunk or someone who lost their shoes. But as I kept glancing, I realized something was off. The toes were pointed slightly inward, like whoever was standing there was frozen. And the more I stared, the more I noticed how wrong the color was. Almost translucent, with no veins or texture, like wax or plastic. I quickly finished up and went to the sink to wash my hands, but I couldn't stop glancing at the feet. That's when the light flickered harder. The buzzing got louder, like it was struggling to stay on, and then it went out completely. The bathroom went pitch black. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't alone in there, and the last thing I wanted was to bump into someone or something in the dark. I was reaching for my phone to use the flashlight when the lights flickered back on. The stall door was still shut, but the feet were gone. Just gone. I stared at the empty space, my stomach twisting. The bathroom was tiny. There was no way anyone could have left without me seeing or hearing them. I took a step back, my eyes darting around, and then I heard it, a faint, raspy breath. It wasn't mine, and it was coming from the stall. The lights buzzed again, dimmed, and then came back on. I stood there, frozen, debating if I should just run out. But some part of me needed to know. Slowly, I reached out and pushed the stall door open. It swung inward with a creak, and I immediately regretted it. The stall was empty. No shoes, no bag, no nothing. Just an empty stall. I backed away, my skin crawling. I looked at the mirror above the sink, and for a split second, I thought I saw something. A pale blur in the corner of my eye. My heart was racing, and I bolted back to my table. Sitting there, trying to calm down, I kept replaying it in my head. Those feet, that weird smell, the light flickering. I couldn't eat anymore. I just sat there, staring at my tray, wondering if anyone else had experienced something like that. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to ask one of the workers. I waved them over when they were cleaning a nearby table and said, "Hey, has anything weird ever happened in the bathroom here?" The guy stopped, his face instantly changing. "Why? Did something happen?" I hesitated, but I told him about the feet, the lights, and the breathing. His expression didn't change. If anything, He looked more freaked out. "Man," he said, lowering his voice, "you're not the first person to say something like that." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach dropping. He glanced around like he didn't want anyone else to hear. "A couple months ago, someone said they saw feet under the stall too, and one of our night shift guys swears he heard breathing in there when it was empty." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, grabbed my stuff, and sat there for a while, trying to process everything. I didn't leave right away. I didn't want to admit how freaked out I was, but even now, I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know what I saw, and maybe I never will. But one thing's for sure. I'm not going back to that McDonald's anytime soon. It was the summer of 2014, and I was stuck working the late shift at McDonald's. Just me, Kyle working drive-thru, and Lisa managing the front. It was a slow night, dead quiet, and honestly, those were the worst. There's something about a fast food joint being too empty that makes the whole place feel off. I was in the back, wiping down the counters. The grill was already clean, and we didn't have any customers, so it was just about killing time. The air felt heavy, like the kind of pressure you get before a bad storm, even though we were indoors. I didn't think much of it. Maybe the AC was on the fritz again. That's when I felt it, like someone was watching me. You know that creepy sensation where the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? Yeah, that. I glanced over my shoulder, expecting to see Kyle sneaking up on me to pull some dumb prank, but the kitchen was empty. I shook it off and went back to scrubbing the counter. A few minutes later, out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone standing near the fryer station. Just a shadowy figure at first. But then, when I looked directly, I saw him. He was a guy, maybe in his late 20s or early 30s, wearing clothes straight out of another decade, like 1970s casual. Faded jeans, a striped polo shirt, and this brown jacket that looked like it had been pulled out of an old thrift shop. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there with his back to me, staring down at the fryers. "Hey man, you're not supposed to be back here," I called out. My voice came out shakier than I wanted, but something about him felt wrong. He didn't move, didn't even flinch. It was like he hadn't heard me. I took a step closer, trying to keep my cool. "You okay? You need something?" That's when he turned around, slow and deliberate. His face was pale, almost gray, and his eyes, they didn't look right. They were sunken and dark, like there was nothing behind them. He stared straight at me, and I swear my heart stopped. Before I could say anything else, he was gone. Just like that. 1 second he was there, and the next, it was just empty space. I backed up so fast I nearly tripped over a mop bucket. My hands were shaking, and I had to take a second to catch my breath. Maybe I was seeing things. It was late, and I was tired, right? That's what I told myself, but deep down, I knew what I'd seen. I bolted to the front. "Lisa! Kyle! Get back here!" Lisa came over first, looking annoyed. "What now?" Kyle followed, munching on some fries like he didn't have a care in the world. "What's the big deal? Did you break something?" "No, I saw someone," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "A guy. He was in the kitchen by the fryers." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "What kind of guy?" "Old school looking, like from the 70s. Jeans, polo jacket, but he just disappeared." Kyle stopped chewing, his face getting serious. "Wait, are you messing with us? Because if you're not, I've heard stories about this place." Lisa crossed her arms. "What kind of stories?" Kyle lowered his voice, like someone else might be listening. People say it's haunted, that a guy died here back in the day. Freak accident or something. They say he still shows up during the late shift. I didn't know what to say, but the look on Kyle's face told me he wasn't joking. Before anyone could say more, we all heard it. A faint sound, like footsteps shuffling across the floor. It was coming from the back, near the Friars. Lisa froze. "Tell me you heard that." "I heard it," Kyle said, his voice barely above a whisper. We stood there, staring down the empty kitchen. None of us wanted to move, but the sound stopped after a few seconds, leaving only the hum of the equipment. Lisa cleared her throat. "Okay, look, we've got a job to do, and we can't just stand here all night. Let's stick together and finish up, all right?" We nodded, none of us wanting to admit how freaked out we were. We went back to work, staying within sight of each other the whole time. Every so often, I'd catch something out of the corner of my eye. A flicker of movement. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. But I didn't say anything. Kyle started humming nervously to fill the silence, and Lisa kept glancing over her shoulder like she expected someone to be standing there. By the end of the shift, we were all on edge, jumping at every little noise. Even though we stayed and finished the shift, none of us were the same after that night. Every late shift after, we made sure to stick together. None of us wanted to be alone in that kitchen ever again. It's been years since this happened, and my wife and I still won't hit the drive-thru late at night. This wasn't just one of those weird vibe stories. This was something that shook us to our cores. I've never been one to believe in ghosts or spirits, but I can't explain what happened that night. Not really. Back then, our local McDonald's was 24 hours. It was one of those places you could count on to feed you, no matter how late you stayed up. My wife worked crazy hours, 3 a.m. shifts, so I adjusted my schedule to match hers. That night, it was around 4 a.m., and we were starving. We pulled into the drive-thru, placed our order, and rolled up to the window to wait for our food. Everything was normal at first. The lot was empty. The street lights buzzed faintly, and the worker inside looked half asleep. Then I saw him. A guy walking toward the restaurant from the other side of the lot. It wasn't the guy himself that was weird. He looked like any random dude, maybe in his 40s, wearing a dark jacket. What was weird was the feeling that hit me. Out of nowhere, this wave of dread crashed over me. My stomach dropped, my chest tightened, and every nerve in my body screamed, "Run!" I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I couldn't explain it. The guy walked under a streetlight, and that's when I saw it. Floating just behind him was something. It was tall, at least 6 feet, but it didn't seem to have a solid body. Its lower half just faded into wisps like smoke, but the upper half was clearer, black, except for this pale white face. The face was the worst part. It wasn't like a human face. It was blank, hollow. The eyes were sunken, dark pits, and the mouth was stretched into this unnerving, almost too wide grin. Its long arms hung low, and these claw-like hands rested on the guy's shoulders, almost like it was guiding him. I froze. My brain was racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Was I imagining it? A trick of the light? But then the guy passed out of the streetlight's glow, and just like that, the thing disappeared. I was about to brush it off as my mind playing tricks when I heard the car doors lock. The sound snapped me back to reality, and I glanced at my wife. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, and she just whispered, "Tell me you saw that." My heart sank. I wasn't crazy. "Yeah," I said, my voice shaking. "I saw it." We sat there in silence, watching as the guy kept walking, completely unaware of what we'd seen. He strolled right into the restaurant like nothing was wrong. That's when it really hit me. It wasn't just scary to see it. The fact that my wife saw it too, that was terrifying. I didn't want to influence her, so I waited for her to describe what she'd seen before I said anything. She said she started feeling nauseous and uneasy as soon as the guy showed up. She was worried he might approach the car because he looked angry, like he was about to snap. Then she saw it. She didn't notice the face, but she saw a black, wispy shape with long arms and clawed hands resting on his shoulders. She said it seemed to disappear as he walked out of the light, just like I'd seen. We didn't even eat our food that night. We just drove home in silence, too shaken to talk. Every little sound on the drive back made us jump. I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my head, wondering what the hell it was we saw. Was it attached to him? Was it following him? And the worst question, did he even know it was there? We still don't go to the drive-thru late at night. I don't know if what we saw was some kind of ghost, a demon, or just a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and too many late nights. But whatever it was, it didn't feel like something from this world. Even now, I can't shake the image of those clawed hands resting on his shoulders, like it was steering him towards something we weren't meant to understand.